I've taught you about physics. I've taught you about anatomy. I've even taught you a bit of psychology. Here comes a lesson about the economics of reloading. Let's talk about that. Here's your armed citizen meme of the week. Screen cap it, crop it, and send it to everyone you know.
It'd be a lot cooler if you did.
Before I get started with the content, I want you to know this is 100% human, 0% AI. I write my own scripts and I record my own videos. And while I got your attention, I'm going to ask what everyone else does. I'm going to ask that you like my video. I'm going to ask that you subscribe to my channel and share it with your friends. And if you're feeling real generous, I have a buy me a coffee link. Toss a few coins my way so I can stay stocked in ammo. Let's get on with the content. Before I start on this, I am not saying you should or should not get into reloading. This is like all of my other videos. It's here to present information as neutrally as possible so you can make an informed decision before you start, instead of after you've dropped a couple $1,000s on equipment and then found out if you don't like it. This is also a starting point. There are many people who know way more about this than I do. I suggest you do your research and seek them out for their wisdom. Economics is the science of trade-offs. You determine what you want, then decide if the money, time, and effort you expend to get it is worth what you get back out of the activity. As someone once told me, time and money are interchangeable. You can always spend more of one to spend less of the other. Think of it this way. You're at home really hungry and you have a hankering for that Kung Pao chicken from the King Dragon buffet down the street. But it's cold and raining. Your first choice is you can go through the effort to get dressed, go through the weather, get in the car, get out of the car, go into the store, and have your Kung Pao chicken. Your second option is to pay $20 for DoorDash to get it delivered. Your third option is to not spend the money and make something at home from what you have. Your fourth option is to do nothing and go hungry. Each of these choices expends different amounts of time, effort, and cash against the benefit of getting a really tasty dinner. And so it is with reloading. There will be an initial capital outlay to get the equipment you need and the continuing cost of consumable supplies. The benefits you get in return are ammo to shoot, the satisfaction of making your ammo, and the personal enjoyment of actually going through the process to make the ammo itself. You will also spend time to make your ammunition, time that could be spent with your wife, your children, making more money, etc. The best of both worlds is your spouse and children also like shooting, which means that you can turn the ammo production time into family bonding time. The absolute first thing you should get before anything else is a reloading recipe book. This has critical information like case dimensions and how much of which powder to use for the bullet weight that you're using. Do not reload without this book on your bench as a constant reference, referred to every time you're there. If you do make the decision to go ahead and roll your own, then you must consider liability. If you accidentally drop too much powder in the case, or even sometimes not enough, because that'll cause a squib load, or you seat the bullet too deep, you run the risk of overpressurizing your firearm, leading to a energetic and unscheduled disassembly of your weapon in your hand. And if you give or sell your reloaded rounds to someone else and they get hurt, as they say, lawyers get involved. There are justifiable reasons for reloading. If you have a rifle that uses a Wildcat cartridge that is not commercially made, or you want to make your own match grade ammunition, these are valid reasons. And with the wide variety of propellant powers and recipes to use them, you can tune your bullet performance to whatever you want. 30 plus years ago, when I got into reloading, I was doing a lot of shooting, 4 or more rounds of skeet every Saturday, IPSC competitions Thursday nights, and practicing on top of that. So I was getting a lot of trigger time. And so I started reloading to save money. I had a Hornady 366 shot shell reloader for my skeet shooting. That really made the skeet shooting affordable. All I had to do was put a shell in, put the wad where it needed to be, and crank the handle. I made a hole in the back of my bench where the shells came out of the machine, and the hole had a ramp that dropped the finished shells in a box where I would then load up my shot shell carrier and be ready to go. It took me less than an hour a week to crank out the 100 plus rounds I needed, start to finish. For rifle and pistol, I used a single stage Lee press. I was shooting 45 for IPSC, and I was using all lead 185 grain semi-wad cutters for the projectiles, which helped keep the cost down. And my then preschool aged son would play out in the garage while I was out there, and we had male bonding time. So let's start off by understanding the steps it takes to go from components to ready ammunition. Your first step was to deprime and resize the brass. Once you've done that, step 2 is check and trim your brass if necessary. This is more prevalent in rifle than reloading in pistol. No matter what, resizing the case thins the case walls, and that in turn makes the case a little longer. If the case is too long, it needs to be trimmed to size, because if it's too long, well, the short version is bad things happen. Depending upon the die, or depending upon the caliber and the die settings, this needs to happen every 2 to 3 sizings for every particular brass. Once you've got that done, step 3 is reprime the brass. Step 4 is add the powder charge into the case. Step 5, place the bullet and then seat it to the correct depth and roll crimp your case to hold the bullet in place. Since I used a single stage press, I did this in 100, 200, 300 round batches, each step on a different night. The first night, I would resize and deprime with the first die, checking the brass and trimming the case length when necessary. The second night, I used a hand squeezer to reprime the brass while I sat on the couch watching TV. On the third night, I put the brass into a reloading tray and used a swing arm powder drop to put the powder into the brass, then put the seating die on the press to seat and crimp the round. Overall, I was doing about 1 bullet a minute. It actually took closer to 90 minutes per 100 rounds, as I had 3 start up and clean up evolutions to do around each action. This is great if you're doing low volume production, wildcat production, or you're making match grade ammunition. You can get a complete single stage reloading kit like what I had and all the little stuff not in the kit for about $200 right now. Way less than what I'm going to talk about, but the single stage is a couple orders of magnitude slower. This is also an inexpensive way to see if reloading is for you or not. If you decide to upgrade, my suggestion is you carefully box this kit back up and save it as a gift to someone who tells you they're thinking about getting into reloading. After you show them this video, of course. If you're wanting to go volume production, a progressive loader is where it's at. The Maserati of progressive reloading presses are the ones made by Dillon Precision. I wanted one, I could never afford them. If you want to go fast with little effort while reloading, Dillon is the shiznit. Depending upon which model you get, which options, and maybe a couple of extra die sets to reload more than one caliber, that will set you back anywhere from $1,000 for the square deal B, the bottom of the line, to $2,500 for the RL 1100, the top of their line. You can also figure another $500 for the minor ancillary stuff like a brass tumbler, a bullet puller, and other special tools and non-ammo consumables. Dillons are great. When you start a session, you fill the primer tube, fill the powder reservoir, and then put the box of brass and bullets within reach and start cranking out ammo. The XL 750 and up models have an automatic dispense reservoir for the brass as well. With those high-end models, all you have to do is place the bullet where it goes, crank, bullet, crank, and so on. With the mostly manual square deal B, you'll get about 6 to 8 rounds a minute because you want to take your time with this kind of stuff. The higher end models that do more for you, you can crank out 10 to 12 rounds a minute. Now that we know the process, let's talk about the costs for an individual bullet. I am quoting prices for 115 grain 9mm since that's my practice ammo. For such a round of 9mm ammo, you will spend about 10 to 12 cents for the projectile, 6 cents for the powder, 3 cents for the powder, 9 cents for the case. Now, that's new unfired brass. Once fired bulk brass is about 6 cents a case. And you can lower this cost by reusing a case several times. So that knocks it down to around 2 or 3 cents because you'll get about 5 uses out of it. Shooting at a competition, you are free to pick up your brass. Picking up your brass at an indoor range is frowned on, doubly so if it's not your brass. Ranges collect the fired brass and projectiles and sell them to remanufacturers to keep their costs down. The indoor ranges can't stop you from using a brass catcher, though. Now, my calculator says for those 4 components, getting them from your local reloading supply store, that will cost you about 22 cents a round. Online bulk purchases can get that down to 20 cents or maybe even slightly under, depending upon how much you're getting, shipping charges, and all that kind of stuff. Meanwhile, I can head over to the Bass Pro down the street and get professionally made new ammo for about 25 cents each. If I want to drop several Franklins in one purchase, I can get 1,000 rounds delivered to my door for around 21 cents a round, less than your store-bought components. Now let's ask the important question. With you saving around 3 cents a round, how long would it take you to amortize or pay for the cost of the reloading equipment? Gird your loin, guys and girls. On the low end, $1,000 for the square deal B and extra stuff, you will need to reload about 33,500 rounds. You want to go for the XL 1100? We're talking 150,000 rounds. To give you an idea of how long that would take, let's say every night after you've completed your husband and father duties, you went to your reloading table and cranked out 100 rounds of ammo, 2 boxes worth. To set up the machine with the powder and primer, stage the cases and bullets, crank out the rounds, and then put everything away afterwards, that would be about 30 to 45 minutes if you don't get sidetracked. On the square deal B, that will take you just under a year, 11 months to pay for the equipment. The 1100 would take 4 years and a month on top of that. Now, there is a way to cut the price of the bullet in half to about 6 cents per 9mm 115 grain bullet. The problem is it's a repeat of everything I just talked about. You would need to spend your time making the bullets, after buying the equipment to melt the lead, to cast the bullets, and then more equipment to size and lubricate the lead bullets. The minimal capital outlay for the equipment for just casting bullets is going to be around $800. And roughly speaking, you would need to produce about 13,500 bullets to amortize the equipment outlay just for the bullets. Now, reloading rifle ammunition has a whole nother layer of complexity and hazards to it. You will need more equipment to trim and ready the brass, and you have to be very careful when sizing it that you don't have too much oil on the case, which leads to what's called oil dents. These are extremely bad because those dents reduce the internal volume of the cartridge and, as a result, spike the chamber pressure above safe limits. As an indicator to show your chamber pressures are too high, look for flattened primers. In other words, you don't have the normal curved edge of the primer like for the round on the left or before you fire it. The center brass shows high pressure and the right brass shows dangerously high chamber pressures. The gas has literally fed back through the touch hole and hammered the cup of that primer flat against the bolt face. This shortens the life of your firearm and possibly even you. This is why when a recipe calls for, say, 5 grains of a powder, you start at like 4.5 grains and work your way up slowly. In closing, I'm not saying or suggesting that you should or should not get into reloading. I am saying there is little to zero economic benefit in doing so. The enjoyment of rolling your own, along with possibly making it a family bonding evolution, can outweigh any cash difference between your ammo and commercial. I'm doing this because most loaders can't articulate this to you, as they might not know exactly why themselves. They know they enjoy it, and that's about it. I want to make sure that you have what you need to make an informed decision. There are times and circumstances where reloading is certainly indicated, and others where that is less so. Stay safe, stay bullet-free. Tell your family you love them every chance you get. Y'all have yourselves a wonderful day. If you made it this far, thank you. If you liked this content, please hit the like button to show your support. Help me get the word out by subscribing to my channel, and don't forget to turn notifications on so you know when I post new content. If you think this content would help your friends, the share button helps you get it out to your social media. Comments mean a lot to me, good or bad. Please leave one. All right, go forth and have a most excellent day.